My father's first words on entering Westminster Abbey yesterday were a pledge of service. It was a pledge to continue to serve, because for over 50 years, in every corner of the UK, across the Commonwealth, and around the world,
what she was about to reveal about her marriage to William would shatter everything we thought we knew. Royal insiders tried to stop her, close friends begged her to reconsider. But Catherine had reached her breaking point. The truth she'd been hiding for months was finally coming out, and nothing would ever be the same. What happened behind closed doors was far worse than anyone imagined.
And I think there will be for quite some years to come too, because this really isn't something that we're going to be able to change quickly and overnight. It's going to take, generations, and I'm keen to support this for the long term.
Catherine had always been known for her composure. She was the type of person who noticed small details, the way afternoon light had changed the colour of a room, how a child's laugh could shift the entire mood of a day. She paid attention to gestures and unspoken communication, reading the emotional temperature of any situation with remarkable accuracy. These qualities had served her well in public life, where so much depends on reading rooms and responding appropriately. But they also meant she was acutely aware when something was wrong, particularly in her own marriage. The morning she finally acknowledged what had been building for months began like any other. She woke before dawn, before the household stirred to life, before the day's obligations could crowd in. This had become her pattern, these stolen moments of solitude before everything else demanded her attention. She moved through familiar routines, making tea in the same cup she had used for years, the one with a small chip on the handle that she had never bothered to replace. She stood at the kitchen window, looking out at the garden she tended, and felt the now familiar sensation of unease settling in her chest. It was not sharp pain, nothing that would make someone cry out or seek immediate help. This was different, a slower kind of hurt that lived beneath the surface, the kind that whispers rather than shouts, that accumulates over time until one day you realize it has become part of your daily existence. She had been feeling it for weeks, possibly months, telling herself it was just tiredness or stress or the natural ebb and flow of any long-term relationship. Everyone goes through difficult periods, she reasoned. Every marriage has seasons, and perhaps this was simply a winter that would eventually give way to spring. But standing there alone in her kitchen, Catherine could no longer maintain that fiction. The truth was unavoidable. Something fundamental had shifted between her and William, and no amount of patience or hope was going to shift it back. She thought about what they had once been to each other. There was a time when William's presence could change the entire feeling of a room, when the sound of his voice could unknot the tension in her shoulders, when simply holding his hand felt like coming home. She remembered conversations that stretched late into the night because neither of them wanted them to end. She remembered comfortable silences, the kind that feel warm rather than threatening. Those memories still existed, preserved like photographs in an album she rarely looked at anymore. They were real, but they belonged to different versions of themselves, versions that felt impossibly distant from who they had become. What she noticed most now was silence. Not the peaceful kind that comes from deep comfort and understanding, but the heavy kind that makes you hyper-aware of everything you are not saying. They still talked, of course. They discussed schedules and children and all the practical machinery of their shared life. But the real conversations, the ones that matter, had become rare. She could not remember the last time he had asked what she was actually thinking, or the last time she had felt safe enough to tell him. Somewhere in the gradual drift of daily life, they had learned to exist beside each other without truly connecting. They were two people living in the same house, speaking different languages, going through the motions of partnership while the substance of it slowly evaporated. Catherine walked to the window seat where they used to sit together on Sunday mornings, back when Sundays felt sacred, rather than just another day to get through. She sat down alone and let herself remember a specific moment that she could now identify as a turning point. They had been getting ready for some event, moving around each other with the practiced efficiency of people who had shared space for years. She had reached for his hand, not for any particular reason, just because she wanted to feel connected to him. He had been distracted, his mind already on whatever came next, and he had moved away without seeming to notice that she was reaching for him at all. It was such a small thing, barely worth mentioning. But in that moment, Catherine had felt something crack inside her. A tiny fissure that she tried to ignore, but that changed something fundamental about how she moved through the world. After that, the small moments accumulated. Him turning away when she tried to talk about something meaningful. Her laughing at something and looking over to share the moment, only to find he had already left the room. Dinners where they sat across from each other like polite strangers making conversation. Nights when she lay awake beside him, feeling lonelier than she had ever felt when actually alone. Each moment was tiny on its own, barely noticeable. But cracks have a way of spreading, of meeting other cracks, until suddenly you are standing in something broken and you cannot remember exactly when it shattered. You just know that it did. She had tried to be patient. She had tried to be understanding, to give him space while also attempting to close the distance between them. She had tried to convince herself that love was enough, that if she just loved him well enough and consistently enough, everything would eventually settle back into place. But sitting there in the morning light, Catherine finally allowed herself to know what her heart had been trying to tell her for months. The trying had exhausted her. The understanding had transformed into resignation. The patience had become a quiet kind of grief. She had been the only one fighting to save something that required two people to survive. And she was tired, bone-tired, in a way that sleep could not fix. The realization did not come with drama or anger. It came with a sort of sad clarity, the kind that settles over you when you finally stop resisting what you have always known. Their marriage was not working. More than that, she was not sure it could work anymore, not without fundamental changes that seemed beyond either of their capacity to make. Catherine had reached a point where pretending felt more painful than honesty. For weeks, perhaps months, she had been carrying the truth inside her like broken glass, feeling it cut deeper with every breath, every forced smile, every attempt to act as though things might somehow improve on their own. The weight of it had become unbearable. Not just the sadness of watching their marriage fail, but the loneliness of carrying that knowledge alone. Of watching William try to fix something without understanding how deeply broken it truly was. She realized she had been protecting him, letting him believe that his efforts were enough, that showing up more and trying harder could repair what had been damaged beyond simple solutions. She had watched him attempt to rebuild their connection with the same determination he brought to every responsibility in his life. And she had said nothing about the truth screaming inside her chest, because saying it out loud would make it real. It would turn private grief into shared devastation. It would force them both to face consequences she was not sure either of them could survive. But hiding it was killing her slowly. The pretense had become heavier than honesty could ever be. She found him in his study that afternoon, surrounded by papers that suddenly seemed trivial compared to what she was about to do. He looked up when she entered, and something in her expression made him set down his pen immediately. There was a quality to her stillness that he had learned to recognize over the years, a particular weight to her silence that meant something important was coming. He stood up, concern deepening the lines around his eyes. She could see him trying to read her, trying to understand what was wrong before she said anything. That ability to sense her moods had always been one of his strengths, one of the things that had made her believe they were truly connected. But lately, even that seemed to have faded. He noticed when something was wrong, but he no longer seemed to know what to do about it. Catherine closed the door behind her and leaned against it for support because her legs felt unsteady. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears, feel it in her throat. This was the moment. Once she spoke these words, everything would change. There would be no going back, no more pretending, no more protecting either of them from reality. She told him she needed to say something and asked him to just listen. The request itself seemed to frighten him. She could see it in the way his posture changed, the way his hands tensed. He moved toward her, but she walked to the window, putting distance between them because she needed space to say this. She wanted to not see his face break as the words landed. Outside, the world continued as if nothing was about to shatter. Birds sang in the garden. Trees swayed in the breeze. Life moved forward, completely indifferent to the ending happening inside this room. Catherine said the words that had been building inside her for weeks. She told him she did not think their marriage could survive this, that she did not think They could survive this. The words felt like stepping off a cliff, like letting go of something she had been clinging to with all her strength. The silence that followed was absolute. She could feel William behind her, frozen, trying to process what she had just said. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. He asked her what she was saying, as if he had not heard clearly, as if perhaps he had misunderstood. Catherine turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. She explained that all his efforts, all his trying, had come too late. The damage was too deep. They had been breaking for so long that she did not think there was enough left to save. His response came out sharp and desperate. He refused to accept it. He insisted they could fix this, that he was fixing this. But Catherine told him gently that he was trying to fix something already broken beyond repair. And the gentleness somehow made it worse. She explained that she had let him try because she could not face telling him the truth. But the truth was that she did not know if she was still in love with him. She did not know if what they had now was love or just the memory of what love used to feel like. William staggered back as if she had physically struck him, his face drained of color. He told her she could not mean that, his voice cracking with disbelief. But she did mean it. She wished she did not, but she did. She told him she wished she could say that his efforts were working, that they just needed more time, that everything would be okay if they kept trying. But she had been lying to both of them, and she could not do it anymore. Their marriage, what they had been, what they were, she thought it was dying. Maybe it was already dead, and they were just too afraid to admit it. He shook his head violently, refusing to accept what she was saying. He insisted this was just a rough patch, that all marriages have them, that they could get through it. But Catherine explained that this was different. A rough patch is when you argue about money or disagree about decisions. This was fundamental. This was her realizing that she had spent so long being invisible to him that she had started disappearing from herself. And she could not keep doing that. She would not. William pleaded with her to tell him what to do, to tell him how to make her stay, how to make her love him again. There were tears in his eyes now. The desperation in his voice was raw and painful to hear. But Catherine had to tell him she did not think he could. She did not think anyone could, because the problem was not just him. It was them. It was what they had become. It was all the ways they had failed each other, all the moments they had let slip away, all the choices that had brought them to this point. William sank into a chair, his hands covering his face. The shock was written in every line of his body. The disbelief, the denial, the desperate scramble to find some way to reverse what she was saying. This was the future he had been trying to avoid, the loss he had sensed coming but convinced himself could be prevented. And now it was here, undeniable and devastating, spoken aloud in his wife's broken voice. He asked when she had decided this, his voice muffled by his hands. Catherine explained that she had not decided anything. It had simply become true, slowly, over all the months they had stopped being partners and started being strangers. She had fought it for so long, tried to convince herself she was wrong, that things would get better, that love would be enough. But love was not enough when the foundation was crumbling beneath it. The room felt smaller suddenly. The air became harder to breathe. Everything that had been familiar just hours ago now felt foreign and strange. Their home, which had witnessed so many moments of joy and struggle and ordinary life, no longer felt like theirs. The routines they had built together, the rhythm of shared existence, all of it seemed to belong to different people, a different version of them that no longer existed. William looked up at her, his eyes red and desperate. He asked what happens now. The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither of them wanted to face. Catherine wrapped her arms around herself, physically holding the pieces together as best she could. She told him she did not know. She just knew she had to tell him the truth. She had to stop pretending and protecting and hiding what was happening between them. He asked her what was happening between them, his voice hollow. She met his gaze and the sadness in her eyes was infinite. She told him they were ending. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they were ending. And she thought they both needed to accept that. The truth hung between them like smoke, choking and inescapable. Their world no longer felt recognizable. Everything they had built, Every promise they had made, every dream they had shared, all of it was crumbling. And standing there in that room, drowning in shared grief and separate pain, neither of them knew how to stop it. The days following Catherine's confession moved with a strange quality, as though time itself had become unreliable. Some moments crawled by with excruciating slowness, every second stretching out while she sat in painful silence. Other moments seemed to race forward, hurling her toward decisions and consequences she was not ready to face. She woke each morning to responsibilities that demanded her presence, children who needed her attention, obligations that required her smile, a world that expected her to be exactly who she had always been. And she performed. She dressed carefully, moved through her duties with the practiced grace that had become second nature over the years. She spoke when spoken to, nodded in the right places, maintained the appearance of normalcy that everyone wanted from her. But inside, Catherine felt like she was watching herself from somewhere far away, observing a person going through motions that belonged to someone she used to be. The questions came at unexpected moments. While pouring juice at breakfast, she would wonder if she had the strength to do this for another day, another week, another year. While standing in the garden she once loved, she would question whether anything she had built here was real, or just an elaborate performance they had both agreed to maintain. The confession had opened something inside her that could not be closed again. A knowing that made pretending impossible. A clarity that turned everything familiar into something strange. People asked if she was all right. At events she could not remember agreeing to attend. Acquaintances would comment that she looked tired. She smiled the way she always did and assured them she was fine, just a bit worn out. The lie tasted like ash on her tongue, but it was easier than the truth. Easier than saying she did not know if she was all right, if she would ever be all right again, if all right was even something worth aiming for anymore. William saw the change in her immediately. He had always been able to read Catherine, to sense the shifts in her mood, the shadows that crossed her face when she thought no one was watching. But now those shadows had become permanent, a sadness that lived in her eyes even when she smiled. And knowing he had put it there, that his absence, his choices, his failures had created this pain, made him desperate to fix it. So he tried. He tried harder than he had ever tried at anything in his life. He started coming home earlier, clearing his schedule of things that had once seemed essential but now felt meaningless compared to what he was losing. He asked her about her day and actually waited for the answer, listening with the full attention he should have been giving her all along. He offered help with tasks she usually handled alone, made small gestures he hoped would show her he was present now, that he was trying to become the husband she deserved. One afternoon, he found her in the library with a book she was not reading. He suggested they take a walk together, just the two of them, like they used to do. She looked up at him, and for a moment something flickered in her expression. Maybe hope. Maybe just the memory of when hope felt possible. She agreed quietly, and they walked through gardens that had witnessed better versions of themselves. They moved past hedges that had been there longer than their marriage, under trees that would outlive whatever happened between them. William kept stealing glances at her, trying to gauge if his efforts were making any difference, if the distance between them was shrinking even slightly. But Catherine walked with her arms wrapped around herself, protective and distant, and he realized with growing desperation that he was trying to repair something that was already slipping through his fingers. Everything felt fragile now, like the slightest wrong word or gesture could shatter what little remained. He was afraid to speak too much, afraid to be silent too long, afraid that nothing he did would be enough to undo the damage that had accumulated over months of neglect. He wanted to tell her he was here now, that he was trying, to beg her not to give up on them. But the words stayed trapped inside him, too vulnerable to release, too desperate to sound like anything but pleading. The worst part was the nights. They had always shared a bed, even during difficult times, even when anger or frustration created temporary walls between them. But now the bed felt enormous, a vast space that emphasized the distance they could not bridge. They lay on their separate sides, careful not to touch, each pretending to sleep, while silence stretched on for hours. Catherine would stare at the ceiling, counting cracks in the plaster she had never noticed before, wondering how two people could occupy the same space and feel so completely alone. She could hear William breathing beside her, could sense him lying awake just as she was. Both of them trapped in the same prison of unspoken thoughts and careful distance. Sometimes she wanted to reach for him, to cross the inches that felt like miles, to seek comfort in the familiarity of his presence. But her hand never moved, held back by fear that he would turn toward her out of duty rather than desire, or worse, that he would not turn toward her at all. William lay in the darkness, feeling the weight of her beside him. She was so close he could touch her, yet she felt further away than when continents separated them. He thought about all the nights he had taken for granted, all the times he had fallen asleep without really seeing her, without appreciating what it meant to share this space with someone who had chosen him, loved him, built a life with him. Now he was awake and aware and desperate, but awareness had come too late. He wanted to pull her close, to whisper all the things he should have been saying for months, to promise he would be better, do better, love better. But the silence between them had grown thorns, and he did not know how to cross it without causing more pain. So they lay there night after endless night, two people sharing a bed, but living in separate worlds. Each small sound became magnified in her. The quiet, her sigh, his shifting position. The clock marking hours that refused to pass quickly. Every moment tested their patience, their endurance, their ability to continue existing in this painful in-between space. During the day, they moved around each other with careful politeness. He asked if she wanted anything. She thanked him for small considerations. They discussed schedules and children and practical matters with the practiced efficiency of people who had been together long enough to coordinate smoothly even while falling apart. To anyone watching, they might have seemed fine, a couple navigating life's demands with grace and partnership. But in the quiet moments when duties fell away and they were left with just themselves, the truth was impossible to ignore. They were close, yet distant, together, yet separate, holding on, yet letting go. Catherine wondered how long she could sustain this, living in the same house with someone who felt like a stranger, performing a marriage that existed more in appearance than reality. The strength it took to wake up each day and continue felt impossible to measure, let alone maintain indefinitely. William wondered if his efforts were making any difference at all, if showing up more now could compensate for all the times he had been absent, if love could survive this much damage, even when you were desperately trying to save it. The questions haunted him as he watched her move through their home like a ghost, present, but not really there, going through motions that seemed to exhaust her more with each passing day. The moment arrived on an ordinary Wednesday morning when Catherine woke up and realized she could not do it anymore. She had spent weeks holding the truth inside her like broken glass, cutting herself with every breath, every movement, every attempt to pretend things might somehow get better. The weight of it had become unbearable, not just the sadness of their failing marriage, but the loneliness of carrying that knowledge alone, of watching William try to fix something without understanding how deeply broken it truly was. She had been protecting him, she realized, letting him believe his efforts were enough, that showing up more and trying harder could repair what had been damaged beyond simple fixes. She had watched him attempt to rebuild their connection with the same determination he brought to every responsibility, and she had said nothing about the truth screaming inside her chest. Because telling him would make it real, would turn private grief into shared devastation, would force them both to face consequences she was not sure either of them could survive. But hiding it was killing her. The pretense had become heavier than honesty could ever be. Catherine found him in his study that afternoon, surrounded by papers that suddenly seemed so trivial compared to what she was about to do. He looked up when she entered, and something in her expression made him set down his pen immediately. He stood, concern written across his face, and asked what was wrong. She closed the door behind her, leaned against it for support because her legs felt unsteady. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears, feel it in her throat. This was the moment. Once she spoke these words, everything would change. There would be no going back, no pretending, no more protecting either of them from reality. She told him she needed to say something and asked him to just listen. He moved toward her, the concern in his eyes deepening into something closer to fear. She admitted she was scared too, that she had been scared for weeks, but that she could not carry this alone anymore. Catherine walked to the window, putting distance between them because she needed space to say this. She wanted to not see his face break as the words landed. Outside, the world continued as if nothing was about to shatter. Birds sang, trees swayed. Life moved forward, indifferent to the ending happening inside this room. She told him she did not think their marriage could survive this, that she did not think they could survive this. The words felt like stepping off a cliff, like releasing something she had been holding onto with all her remaining strength. The silence that followed was absolute. She could feel William behind her, frozen, trying to process what she had just said. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. He asked what she was saying, as though perhaps he had misunderstood. Catherine turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. She explained that all his efforts, all his trying, had come too late. The damage was too deep. They had been breaking for so long that she did not think there was enough left to save. He responded immediately, the word coming out sharp and desperate. He refused to accept it, insisted they could fix this, that he was fixing this. But Catherine told him gently that he was trying to fix something already broken beyond repair. And the gentleness made it worse somehow, made the truth harder to deny. She explained that she had let him try because she could not face telling him the truth. But the truth was that she did not know if she was still in love with him. She did not know if what they had now was love or just the memory of what love used to feel like. William staggered back like she had physically struck him, his face drained of color. He told her she could not mean that, desperation creeping into every word. She responded that she wished she did not mean it, but she did. She wished she could tell him that his efforts were working, that they just needed more time, that everything would be okay, if they kept trying. But she had been lying to both of them, and she could not do it anymore. Their marriage, what they had, what they were, she thought it was dying. Maybe it was already dead, and they were just too afraid to admit it. He shook his head violently, refusing to accept it. He insisted this was just a difficult period, that all marriages have them, that they could get through this together. But Catherine explained that this was different, that this was fundamental. She told him she had spent so long being invisible to him that she had started disappearing from herself, and she could not keep doing that. She would not. William pleaded with her to tell him what to do, to tell him how to make her stay, how to make her love him again. There were tears in his eyes now too, raw emotion breaking through his usual composure. Catherine told him softly that she did not think he could. She did not think anyone could, because the problem was not just him. It was them, what they had become, all the ways they had failed each other, all the moments they had let slip away, all the choices that had brought them here. William sank into a chair, his hands covering his face. The shock was written in every line of his body. The disbelief, the denial, the desperate scramble to find some way to reverse what she was saying. This was the future he had been trying to avoid, the loss he had sensed coming, but convinced himself could be prevented. And now it was here, undeniable and devastating, spoken aloud in his wife's broken voice. He asked through his hands when she had decided this. Catherine explained softly that she had not decided. It had simply become true, slowly, over all the months they had stopped being partners and started being strangers. She had fought it for so long, tried to convince herself she was wrong, that things would get better, that love would be enough. But love was not enough when the foundation was crumbling. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air harder to breathe. Everything that had been familiar just hours ago now felt foreign and strange. Their home, which had witnessed so many moments of joy and struggle and ordinary life, no longer felt like theirs. The routines they had built together, the rhythm of shared existence, all of it seemed to belong to different people, a different version of them that no longer existed. William looked up at her, his eyes red and desperate, and asked what happens now. The question hung heavy in the air between them. Catherine wrapped her arms around herself, holding the pieces together as best she could. She told him she did not know. She just knew she had to tell him the truth, had to stop pretending and protecting and hiding what was happening between them. 2 weeks after that conversation, they sat down together one final time. Not in anger or desperation, but with the quiet resignation of two people who had finally stopped running from reality. The conversation they needed to have could not be postponed anymore. Catherine began by saying she had been thinking about what happens next. William nodded, his throat too tight to speak. She told him she thought they needed time apart. Real time, not just separate rooms in the same house, but actual distance. Space to figure out who they were without each other, whether what they had could be rebuilt, or if they were just holding on to something that was already gone. William said the word that tasted like goodbye, a separation. Catherine looked at him directly, and he could see both pain and determination in her gaze. She explained it was not because she wanted to hurt him, not because she did not care, but because they could not make real decisions while drowning in guilt and fear and desperation. They needed clarity, honesty, not pressure or obligation or the weight of everything they had built. William felt his world tilting, felt the future he had imagined slipping away completely. But beneath the grief, he also felt something unexpected, a tiny thread of relief, because she was right. They could not heal in the same space that had made them sick. They could not find truth while still performing the lie. He asked quietly what would happen if they took this time and realized they were better apart. Catherine's face crumpled slightly, but she did not look away. She told him then they would know, and it would hurt, but at least it would be honest. At least they would not spend the rest of their lives pretending. She added that if they realized they still wanted this, wanted each other, then maybe they could build something new. Not try to resurrect what had died, but create something different, something healthier. But that was only possible if they were both whole on their own first. She could not fix him, and he could not fix her. They had to fix themselves. The truth of it settled over them both. This ending, because it was an ending, even if it might someday become a new beginning, was not built on illusion or pressure or the desperate need to avoid pain. It was built on honesty, on two people finally brave enough to face reality instead of hiding from it. William apologized, and this time the apology carried the full weight of everything he had done and failed to do. Catherine told him she knew, and that she was sorry too, for waiting so long to speak up, for letting them get here before saying something. They sat in silence, two people who had loved each other and hurt each other, and now had to let each other go, at least for now, at least until they could figure out if there was anything left worth saving. Outside, the world continued. Tomorrow would come whether they were ready or not. The future stretched ahead, uncertain and terrifying, and somehow still carrying the smallest possibility of hope.